So imagine this: you've been in FinOps for 4 or 5 years. You know the drill, but suddenly your problems feel repetitive. You catch yourself saying like, if I work for AWS, I could do this, or if I go to a vendor, what I do next. You have hit a career wall. So if you're feeling stuck, it's not your fault. It's a problem that everyone has because nobody has built a playbook for FinOps career. There is not a career path, but there is a way forward. And today we are sharing a personal journey from our guest. We are giving you a system to move your career forward in FinOps. And for helping us with this system, we have Sanjna. Sanjna, how are you?
Doing great, Victor. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to have you and to share your story and the system that you've been preparing, and I've been just checking and thinking about it. And so I wanted to know how did you get into FinOps, so the people can put you a frame, and then we are going to dive into the this switch, this system that you have developed.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with everyone. Um, I got into FinOps very much by chance, much like a lot of people. I didn't really think, oh, this FinOps thing sounds really exciting, so let me go try it. That wasn't my journey. Um, I'm a data scientist by training,
Mm-hmm.
and I had been a data scientist for a while in a few other companies. And I started off at VMware at the cloud business office. And even during the interviews, I thought, oh, this is like really fun and fantastic, and the scale of the problem is really large. And that was a huge draw for me towards this role. And I started off as a data scientist at the cloud business office at VMware about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago at this point. And so I spent about 5 years, 5.5 years at the cloud business office, and the problems got like the very interesting. We were the FinOps was just as a word was just gaining traction. Communities were being formed, and I think the group was still pretty small. I think the people who actively were saying that they are in the world of FinOps was still, I would say, in the hundreds. So it was very, very much in the early days. So I'm very lucky to have gotten a front row seat to seeing the growth that it has seen now to tens of thousands of people. Um, but it was great. That also meant that we had a lot of the problems, which at this point seem solved. So it sounds super easy, but like attribution, how do you allocate shared costs of Kubernetes and containers, which are also like kind of taking off then. We didn't have AI/ML quite yet, but like a lot of the Kubernetes issues were there. Savings plans and like all of the spend based commitments, these problems and these things were new, and like those problems were amazing to solve. Algorithm to kind of manage all of our commitment spend within the company. And I was like
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of millions of dollars, and super exciting for someone like an individual contributor to be able to add like that to her resume, right? To say, oh, I'm helping manage like hundreds of millions of dollars. So it was very exciting problems all over, all around. Um, Around the 4 or 5 year mark, where I felt like most of the problems were solved, I started seeing a repetition of the patterns of problems that I was seeing. We're a multi-cloud hybrid cloud company, and so
Mm-hmm.
we had data center problems, we had multi-cloud problems, but I constantly found myself saying, "Oh, if I worked for the cloud, I would probably do this. I would have done this better." Or if I worked, and Cloud Health was our vendor of choice then. I'd used them for a while. VMware acquired them, and so I also found myself saying, if I worked for Cloud Health, or if I worked for the vendor that we were using, I would have probably done this differently. And I saw myself saying this quite a bit, and that's kind of when I felt, okay, there is some. I think I've kind of reached the limit on how much I can solve here. Maybe it's time for a change. And that's where my journey kind of started. I'm very lucky that the stars aligned. There is a feature called Smart Summary, which I built literally on my laptop. I was being asked every month. We had these things called BU meetings, which I'm sure a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
have. Every month you meet BUs and you go through their stats. We had those meetings as well, and I was just really tired of doing the same thing month over month, and finance asking me the same questions month over month. And so I built this thing saying, this is going to tell me what changed, why it changed, give me a reason for it. I'm familiar with ML and the algorithms there, so I was able to write it, and it kind of really took off. And that was my front door. That was my foot into the
Hmm.
front door of Cloud Health, because they as a tool felt this is really interesting and it's come from a practitioner. I'm sure our customers will love it. And so that's how I got integrated into the Cloud Health team. Um, because they liked something that I built and wanted to build that for their customers. And so the switch of me being a practitioner to a builder had already happened. And so the integration into a vendor was much easier.
No, that's definitely something like very interesting, and seeing like how the paths are working, because you envision it, and you are building internal tools
Yeah.
for your own practice, and then one of it can be a product on its own right. It can be reused by a vendor.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure, like any practitioner listening, I'm sure a lot of them are like nodding their heads and saying, "Oh, you know what? I've done a bunch of these things that I'm sure I've kind of seen that. Oh, the vendor isn't doing this quite well just as yet. I wish this was there, or I wish I was able to." So I'm sure a lot of them are feeling that, and I'd like to say that that is kind of your sign to look for what's next for you if you're finding yourself doing that.
no, and I always encourage like the building spirit, like the we have the FinOps, the open source directory, all these. I am very, yeah. When I see an article with code, and it's going to be in the newsletter, and all of this, so I always encourage people to do things, and especially now with AI, it's helping a lot of people, break the barrier of coding, and it's really help you develop things and make these build ideas happen, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that's how I made that switch from being a data scientist to a product manager. And so my journey personally was a role shift. I really liked the field. I felt I had learned a lot in the field and that had helped me master the craft a little bit. And so while kind of scratching that itch as a builder, I felt that product was the right fit for me. I am a little bit of a more technical product manager that you would find. I build things and then I write requirements because building is my strength, not really requirements as such. But you're absolutely right. Like the world has really expanded for people who consider themselves builders but didn't feel like they had either the college degree or the skill for it, right? Um, it's been what, like 3 4 years now since the first mention of LLM. Like the world has changed so much. I see people really taking on new roles without having formal training on it.
Yeah, definitely, and I also agree. I would say like I'm transitioning to that path, and from the more technical to the more business and the more PM stuff. And I definitely like I prefer to build and then to create the requirements that vice versa. So really really interested into setting your journey, and you know yeah, I think everyone gets to a path. I think it happens in all roles. Like when you are 4 or 5 years in the career, you feel like you need a switch, or what's next, right? Like if you are a DevOps, or for example myself, like what's next? I'm going to be handling Kubernetes clusters for 50 years, or what's going on? And I wanted to if you can share for what's next for FinOps practitioners after you've been 4 or 5 years, because now I think the practice is still new, but there are people that are in that point, such as you and the early, especially the early adopters. So what's next for them? What are your advice for them?
That's a great question. So, I think so. There's a few different questions to be answered, right? Is around the 4 5 year mark, you will kind of, and I'm saying 4 5 year just because it was true for me. For some people, it might be two. They may hit it early, and for some people, they may not hit it even at 10 years. So it's completely fine depending on how exciting the problems are that you're solving at the moment. Um, but you would I think kind of question, especially in the world of AI where everything is kind of changing and roles are becoming kind of fluid. uh, the question is, are you satisfied in the role that you're in, especially for DevOps engineers and for people who are builders? You would kind of question yourself to see. For me, it was a role change, right? The way that I was able to bring the impact that I wanted to, for other people to use the solutions that I am building, it required a product. It required a role change. That is a question you would ask yourself. Are you satisfied in the role that you're in, especially in this new age of AI? Do you feel yourself being brave enough to venture into a new role? It's going to be hard. You're going to kind of be bad for it. for a little bit, right? But eventually you're going to stick it out and see if that's something you enjoy. So you'd question if you want a role change. Hopefully, answer to is FinOps still exciting would be yes, and so you'll stick it out in the field. A lot of people have, and if you've been to these conferences, been to the community, you kind of see a few people kind of coming in and out, right? Like so that does happen.
Mhm.
FinOps might just be not the thing you fall in love with, and that means you stay true to your role. If I stuck with data science and not FinOps, I might have moved to another company in the data science role. So that could have absolutely been the right thing for you as well. Um, so I think these changes, these kind of markers are great, and I have to acknowledge, right? Like this is the market is weird. It's really
Mhm.
hard. So a lot of people may feel like, oh, like she's just like this is theory. Like I want to make a switch, but it's really hard. I totally get it. I feel like the stars did align a little better for me just because I think the vendor was I was working with, and so I did get lucky that way. But I would say that something that also helped me was contributing to Focus. I was one of the early contributors. I've been with them since point 0.5. Uh, I've been a part of the FinOps community very luckily very early on. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think these things help. If you're able to be a part of the community, contribute to anything open source, contribute to the community, working groups, show up at summits like yours is coming up in October, right? And there's so many happening. Like subscribe to these newsletters so that you're in the know, podcasts, just in person wherever possible. There's a lot of these meetups happening. Uh, there's nothing, I truly believe there's no substitute for like in-person connection. If it's possible to meet in person, fantastic. If not,
Yeah.
these things are great. Like the summit that you hold virtually, they're fantastic. I would put training kind of in the lower end of what helps. It's important, it's helpful, but it's not really a substitute for showing how capable you are and how familiar you are with the field. uh,
Yeah, I think also that that like learn by building. So you try to try to new things like the I think we overestimate the amount of learning that we need to do something, and we underestimate the time that doing things
also help you
take,
learn.
and how much it helps because it really makes you develop skills that you didn't think, and then you encounter problems that you didn't thought of when you were planning. Like everything needs a little bit of planning, but probably in the later, like unless it's a bigger project, like for doing a a sample app or a test, like especially now with AI, like the time to test is zero. What I'm seeing is like then the time to test is fine, but then like deploying it and having it available and all of that is still being a problem. That that's why I say like DevOps have a long time role, because deployments are going to be always an issue. But it's what you said, contributing, you help others, the communities are there, like the foundation Slack, our summits, like contributing makes you have to think about how much and you'll probably someone ask you a question, is like, okay, I may not know the answer, I need to do research, I need to prepare, I need to, or if you are preparing a talk or for a meetup, you ask people. It's like you are getting a lot of sources of learning, like from others, and I think it's really drives value from your career, right?
100%. And I've seen the community in general. I don't know what it is about FinOps, but people are really nice. People, for the most
Yeah.
part, want to help. It doesn't matter if they work for the community or for a vendor or for a cloud. Everyone's really nice and everyone wants to talk and everyone wants to help. And it's good lucky to be in a field where everyone actually is helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I also have seen is that the early, like the advanced people, so the early adopters, the super advanced people, the leadership, even like FinOps leads, all these, people that are taking decision are still in the community. Like that doesn't happen in other roles where, the, I don't know, the leads of technology or the leads of IT or whatever are not in the communities, are in there, in the leadership things and all of this. But we have like people handling millions of dollars of cost in a community, like in the summit, in a summit that the early year was the first time that was done, and was by an early community, so nothing like super recognized, super done, and there was already people managing a lot and with a lot of responsibility being there, having a lot of presence. It's amazing. But I wanted to dive deeper into the maybe a little bit into the model that we talked about. So what's the framework? What's the do you have like an idea about how to work, make your next step in FinOps after you maybe are stuck?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm introducing a concept called the FinOps Lattice. There are, I think there's five core roles that you can have within the FinOps career ladder. And you can be different. You can be different things within these, right? Like you can be in finance, you can be in engineering, product, marketing, community, any of these. But I think at the score we have like five things you can choose from. You can be an end user practitioner. So you are the person who makes FinOps what is FinOps. You are solving all the problems. You're doing all the hard work. Your company owes you a lot. You are like the frontline warrior, I would say. And then there are the builders. When you are, and that was something that I really kind of felt found to be really hard, and something that I hadn't really thought of is I was solving a problem for my company when I was a practitioner. When I became a builder, when I was working for a vendor who's now responsible for tens of thousands of people, you now completely change your mindset. Now you're not solving for just one person. You are constantly making negotiations and prioritization decisions, and you're being strategic about what you want to do next. Um, that's a great skill that you learn. So the builder community is basically you're constantly trying to make decisions and do the right thing, but for a larger scale. So these are like solutions like Cloud Health and other tools out there. Then there's cloud providers, right? People who are providing the solutions that are quote unquote the root of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I can only imagine if we feel if at the tooling level and vendor level we feel this way, I can only imagine the scale problems that they're dealing with. So their problems are just a completely different set and completely different beast. And so if you feel yourself being um, able to think that way, or feel like you have the skill to think in scale, to be able to solve problems at that level, uh, where where you're thinking of FinOps, yes, but you're more thinking about customers and scale, and even the smallest thing that you do, you're able to move a lot faster as an end user, a little fast, like still pretty fast as a vendor or a tool, but you're able to move slower, but your impact is just so immense when you release something like a savings plan or release a new optimizer, right? Like in a cloud provider, or introduce a new column in the billing. These are like seemingly smaller things, but the scale is so large that you should see if those are the problems that kind of interest you, and in that case you'd maybe want to try to get into a cloud provider in any role that you see fit. And then there are and these are probably more often overlooked, but that group is just so large and we just cannot ignore them, right? People who are consultants and people who are in our MSP network, they are so huge and they're responsible for getting a lot of people off the ground. um,
Mm-hmm.
I would call them advisors, right? Like they aren't people, and sometimes they can be, but for the most part they aren't people doing hands-on end user work, but they're responsible for enabling so many people to do that, and they also have that broad vision thinking. um, and they try to solve problems that solve it. And so since they're also familiar with so many problems and they've seen so many problems across the board, they also like have that framework thinking. And this doesn't only have to be an MSP or a consulting company. Even within cloud providers or tools, there are consultants and there are PS folks, right? So they're all like problem solvers. They take a problem and they've seen so many different problems and they solve it. And finally, we have, and hopefully we will have this showing here as well as a slide as we speak through it so that people aren't lost. But finally, we have the anchor, basically, like you said, right, the people in the community, the foundational folks who are able to bring everything together, where you've done. one of these things of the four that I just mentioned. You've either been an end user, you worked for a vendor or a provider, or you've been in consulting for really long. Now you know things enough for you to shape standards. Uh, my contribution to focus was coming purely from the problems I had seen of being for working for a hybrid cloud multi-cloud company, right? Like, so you're able to now shape standards. You have the interest and the motivation to work to contribute for open source. You talk to so many people in open source and you learn so much as well. And education, right, in general, like this, like going to summits, speaking at stuff, participating in working groups, publishing white papers. These things are done or enabled by these anchors of the community. You have ambassadors, you have people writing like yourself, you have people writing newsletters, you have podcasters. All of these are so core. We will not have new people coming into the uh, ecosystem if we don't have these things. So you just absolutely cannot count these out. And I've seen a lot of people from clouds and tools getting into the that you are doing, right? Like, it's just immense value. So one of these five roles, I think, would still keep you core in FinOps, and uh, whatever, depending on how much of a scale problem you want to solve, I think any of these five roles would be a perfect fit.
No, definitely. So we'll share with that in the video as well. Like you can see all the steps. But also like it's a really good separation, and I also think that we have all these tiers, and you can jump to each other, and you can connect to each other, and everyone connects to each other. So like for example, like you have the end users that as you develop a tool and then they now introduced to they can now understand the perspective of a tool vendor and they are a better fit for a tool vendor role. And then same thing, TAMs and people that are working in AWS or GCP are used to deal with clients and used to deal with problems and handling issues, so they are a perfect consultant or a perfect tool vendor or account executive because they are already doing that role. The only thing is who is the client or that stuff, and they are also dealing with end users and everything. And then the community, I think, I can speak for myself. It's a different style. It's a different thing, but it's also super contributor, like super helpful for trying to make you get a lot of inputs. So I feel like you are kind of a consultant but without a bit of the practitioner that I miss sometimes. But you are able to get so much going on and get a lot of info and a lot of knowledge about the ecosystem that other people may be more, let's say, narrow to their role or to what they are doing. So they know AWS or they are going to do AWS or S3 optimization or whatever. And for example, in my case, I know about that something on AWS release and then something from GCP and now something from Cloud and then something happened. So I'm more like on the vendor side, like I need to control everything. And I think, you can jump to each of those and it's fine. Like you can be, 4 years in an end user. Then if you are tired, then you can move. Then you can be a consultant on your own. I always recommend people to give a try to do something on your own. I think you learn so much things that nothing, like no, unless you are maybe a C-level. And even there, because the money is not yours. Because when you are doing something in as a freelance or as an entrepreneur, the money is yours, and that's a change, like especially in FinOps. Like we know, the company is spending money, and you don't feel it the same when it's your money, and it's the money that you have earned. Let's say,
That's the
so
whole
it's
problem of FinOps, right? People spending other people's money that they shouldn't.
yeah. If it was your money, your salary being affected by that, we'll probably take a look about how well we spend, and it's something very very interesting. So definitely I think this model is really helpful. And wanted to follow up on, like, you have seen, like, because you are an early practitioner, so you probably have connected with a lot of people and you have heard a lot of cases. So can you share us, like, examples or journeys that you have seen that have gone through similar paths?
Yeah, for sure. And like I've seen people basically switch through like four out of five of them.
Yeah.
And in fact, exactly what you said, right? Like, and then end up in a founder. I don't have that in the lattice, but like that's, you're exactly right. Like being a founder or starting your own thing is exactly what happens. Have you, like, how it was like 5 years ago, how many vendors and how many, like, the names would count them on your hand, like on your hands, but now they're like exploded. Like there's dozens and dozens of people who've gotten in, which is a testament to also, one, that the field is growing. It's fantastic, it's good for everyone. Secondly, it is interesting enough to have attracted new talent from outside. So because we're seeing people who we've not known and like seen for like years finally coming and trying to solve problems in this field. So these are all really really good indicators that the field is growing and that we're in a growing field. One person's journey is, I think, started off with a vendor and then went on to being a practitioner. So that happens as well, right? Like if you've been in the vendor ecosystem and you feel like you're equipped enough to probably go to a larger enterprise and solve their problems, that's fantastic as well. And then moved to a community role, and then left to start their own thing very successfully. So it's like so many jumps that you wouldn't think, while being true to themselves, right? And the role that they took on in all four parts were very different, and so they were able to kind of evolve while staying true to the field. And so this is an example of someone who fell in love with the field of FinOps and then was able to transform not just roles but even like jumped lattices, right? Like points in the lattices. Um, Pretty successfully. And so that was an example. Then I've seen people coming from a cloud provider, and we've seen a lot of these examples, to the community. And they're able to add a lot of value when they have that bi-directional view, right? Like now they have empathy for what their role was in the provider and how that ecosystem works. Also while being in the community, so that bi-directional conversation is great. We have a lot of people who move from being an end user to consulting, or from consulting to being an end user. Those switches are very very strong as well. I will say, like, these personal connections really go a long way because you spend so much time being either as a customer dealing with your vendor, or as a vendor or even a cloud provider dealing with your customers, that there is definitely that connect, and you know how performant some people can be. And so those switches can be a lot easier, and I've seen a lot of those stories successfully happen where customers become a part of the vendor, or move to the cloud, and then people from cloud just say, oh, this is such interesting problem, so I'm going to go solve it in the enterprise itself. And so those are very very common switches that I've seen as well.
No, that's very interesting, and I've seen I heard a lot of stories. Like I could be forever talking about going from one into the other and all of that. But it's also what you say about the connection, right? Like I feel like, for example, even like the FinOps X especially, and the communities and all of that is like making this connection, having these interactions, doing meeting randomly, like like let's chat and 30 minutes talk, you can meet someone in the other side of the world and chat about it. And so that's the advantage. And try to build connections and try to know like the problems that people are doing, what they are doing, who is in your, who can help you, who you can help. All of these, I think that's applicable for all the ecosystems, but especially in this one, because as you mentioned, the community is so open. And it's also like you can do a lot of things. That's the good thing. Like I also see in FinOps an ongoing evolution about expanding the scope, which is a problem and a solution. Like it's a problem for FinOps
Yeah.
because they have a lot of things to do,
Yeah.
and it's a solution because you probably now need a specialization, like having someone for handling the AI, someone for which already is like for
True.
licensing. There is all the item, all the all these people that have been specialized into licensing. That if now everything goes into the scope of FinOps, it's going to be one data. It's another thing that it's crazy, that is growing, is blowing right now, and so that's great. I think that's something that the journey is there for you to take. And I would say that something that says in Spanish that the journey is made by walking. So like,
That's what I
uh,
see. You're absolutely right.
so and so you can take any, like you put a framework about these paths, and then you can take whatever and pinpoint, right?
Yeah. I
And
actually like I will say I recently met someone who's been in this field, like a similar field, for 5 decades. And yeah, yeah. So
that's a long time.
it's a really long time. And so you don't find them often, right? Like, and so that is a testament to how exciting this has been. And then like that got me thinking, is this even is was FinOps even a thing like 50 years ago? That is our talk for 50 years of FinOps. It's a little tongue in cheek, right? Because FinOps isn't really a term 50 years ago, but it's true, right? Even if it was done on pen on paper, where like people were coming into mainframes and trying to access it, you had attribution, you had these things. So there was always someone doing these things. The AI story may seem like you said, it may seem like, oh, you need a specialist to come out of somewhere and like know everything and solve this problem for you. But it's the same, it's just a different chapter of the same story. We've done this before when Kubernetes came out, serverless happened, public cloud became a thing. There were people who've stayed in this field for more than a decade trying to solve all these problems. And so it's a similar thing that you're seeing again, right? Like with AI, it's not really, there is cost. There's a moving way faster. Everything's getting amplified. There's risk. There's security problems. There's anomaly detection. It's the same things that you have to deal with. But it's so I don't I see people constantly feeling kind of nervous and saying, do I need a separate certification? Do I feel like I need like a bunch of things I need to know? The field is moving so fast. I blink and there's something new. But this is exactly how we've felt in pivotal points in the past as well. Exactly when something new.
and
Yeah.
and it always happened, like, I recall from, like, what you say about the, FinOps 50 years ago. There has been 50 years ago, and there has been IT 50 years ago. So that's the what FinOps it is now. It's applying business finance to IT, and that's been already there. The only thing is that now it's changing so fast, and it gets to now it's bounded, right? But I would love to see that talk. And also, as mentioned, the old environments, like I come from the DevOps side. If you've been on the DevOps side and you see the CNNCF landscape, I recall like getting into checking that every week, and every week there was a new tool, a new thing that you need to master, and it was the definitive thing that you would need to master. Otherwise, anything that you have learned before was nothing. Like, when Backstage got out, Argo CD, all of that. And then after, I don't know, 5 years, I don't know how long there have been, they are still there. And the ones that are valid, they are still there. And the ones that don't, they don't. And it's fine. Like, you test things, and now everything moves fast. It's fine. But everything will, I think everything will not slow down, but it will establish. And then
Yeah.
the big players will stay, and then the other things will leave, and that's it. Like, we can be 6 months, 1 year late as a practitioner, and it's fine. You'll get all the learning that people made in 1 year in probably like a month, and it's fine.
Thanks
Like,
to people like you. And so that goes to the important work that the community is doing, right? Like we you would think that if this is a small field, there would be one or two people writing a podcast, writing, right, like newsletters, and that would be okay, and then maybe one conference. But that's not the case in this field at all. There's just so much happening, so many different fresh voices and perspectives. We need, like, you're doing fantastic work. Your newsletters and podcasts, they're really great. They really help people kind of break in.
thanks a lot for the kind words, and thanks for the, seeing that this is helping people. And do you have any, feedback for people that are trying to break? So you mentioned our resources, but what's your advice for these people?
I really enjoyed listening to your talk with Alexa. Like, I think she's a success story there, right? Like of
Yeah.
someone who's not at all in FinOps to have come into the community was very open and helpful, as she said. So I think like that is also a testament to saying that just certifications are not enough. You have to talk to people. You should be able to understand what it's okay for you to not know the details, right? Like you don't have to know the line item where uh, a credit is issued. Like that is not the level of information anyone's know in expecting you to know. But if you're able to empathize in conversation about the problems and how hard they are and the spirit of those, and I think that really kind of opens up the conversation. Meet as many people as you can. Go to these meetups. Participate in summits. Participate in these talks. Right? I think a lot of people do that just right, even if it's not great initially, as long as you start putting your thoughts to paper, they have there's more chance that they reach a larger audience. And I don't mean AI slop, right? I mean like actually right from your right
Yeah.
from your heart, from your mind. People really appreciate that. Speak if you can, right? Like talks, podcasts, these, or even in person, they're really great ways. Or even just one-on-one conversation. Just hit someone up on LinkedIn
Yeah.
or on Slack and then just say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this. I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to find something new, and like, is this, do you think this is the right fit for me? You've done it before, what do you think? um while I say this, I really empathize with how hard the market is for all of us right now, right? It feels like we should just hold on to what we have, which is completely fine. I want to empathize when I say that, but if you feel like the signs are there and if the opportunity is opening up, or if you feel like you can open up that opportunity, there's always space for movement. We're seeing new things kind of pop up on LinkedIn every day, so it is happening. So if we're able to make that happen for ourselves, this now is the good time.
Yeah. No, no, definitely it's like the best time to do things are yesterday sometimes. So, you, and also what you mentioned is that I recall from my early times when I was studying in FinOps, I had my DevOps background and I have some finance background, but I had no idea about the concepts of FinOps or whatever. And I just asked people for a meeting. Like I was pinging people in LinkedIn saying like, "Hey, I don't know FinOps, but I want to be in there. Can you explain it to me?" I recall Eric Norman, I recall Borja explaining to me like what was all about. And I was like, okay, I think I'm getting good info from here and what I need to know and what I need to share, and everything started like that. It's not that I didn't arrive to the market of FinOps knowing everything.
Right, right.
So, and I'm not, and I'm far from knowing that for sure. But what I mean is, you, if you keep doing things and you keep writing, as you say, or you keep speaking and you keep preparing talks, or you keep pinging people and learning or being active in your work, in the communities and all of that, you end up being good, like some level or the other. So you end up, if you like it and you keep there, that's the, repetition is the way to master the topic, right? I think that's
100%.
the thing.
Oh, and like you said, and none of us went to college for this, right? Like we didn't go to
No,
college
no.
saying, "I'm gonna grow up to be a FinOps practitioner." I mean, any of us did. And so all of us are kind of faking it till making it, but not really, right? Like because that's just, we feel like everyone that is so strong in this field just because we all don't feel like we have done enough to be here. But if I've been here for now, what, 7, 8 years, what I say can definitely help someone who's been here for maybe 5 years, and what that person says can help someone who's been here for 2 years. So everyone has something to contribute and everyone has something to give back. And so, like you said, like it's fantastic. You've covered the journey of breaking in and now having your own podcast and helping others so quickly, right? So if you try, I think you can be like Victor.
Definitely, and we'll do everything to support. So I think that was a great chat, and thanks for all your advice and all your help. And looking forward for your talk in FinOpsX. And thanks for taking the time, Sanjna, for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, Victor.
Okay, thanks, and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.